Men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, many of whom are successful, stable, and have everything they need to live comfortably, are rejecting marriage as if it were poison. It is not an inability to love, nor is it hatred of women. It is calculation. They look at the numbers and reality and realize something that was previously silenced. 3 out of 4 marriages end in failure, either through formal divorce or the emotional imprisonment of those who remain together only because of the weight of debt, children, or fear of loneliness. The current generation watches the fate of parents and friends dragged through the courts, paying alimony that consumes decades of work, fighting to see their own children, dividing assets accumulated with sweat. They realize that love and contract are not synonymous. Getting married means betting half of the present and the future on a bond where her feelings, and theirs, were never guaranteed. In what other area of life would someone risk so much without reading the rules? The paradox is cruel. Most people who divorce remarry. Even after emotional and financial ruin, they insist that this time will be different. It's the same logic as a gambler who loses everything and returns to the casino with his last paycheck. They repeat the most expensive lie in history. This time will be different. But the game remains the same. Social conditioning reinforces the cycle. From an early age, men hear that they are only complete when married, that the ceremony is a sign of victory, that being single is a failure. Movies end with weddings as if they were coronations. Friends and family ask when it will be their turn. This cultural weight keeps the gears turning, but many have begun to see beyond the curtain. Today, these men see marriage for what it is, a state contract. Romanticism may exist, but when feelings are confused with legal clauses, the result is dangerous. What was once called commitment has become a legal risk. It is no coincidence that more and more men reject the idea of signing papers that transfer their freedom to judges and lawyers. They continue to love, continue to have relationships, continue to commit, but without voluntarily putting themselves in the machine that profits from family breakdowns. This new attitude is not escapism, it is evolution. It is not immaturity, it is awareness. Marriage is in crisis not because men refuse to grow up, but because the institution no longer offers a balance between cost and reward. Until this contract changes, they will continue to move away, not from love, but from illusion. He offers resources, stability, experience gained over the years. She brings youth, energy, beauty. Both know, even if silently, what is being exchanged. There is more sincerity in this tacit agreement than in many so-called romantic marriages, where feelings are exalted in public, but, in private, every gesture is calculated as in a secret accounting. The problem is not the exchange, but the illusion. Disaster strikes when the man believes that she loves him only for who he is, when he thinks that fortune and social status do not matter, when he confuses performance with devotion. At least in prostitution there is brutal clarity. Everyone knows what they are buying and what they are selling. In marriage, the deception is masked by flowers, music, and promises of eternity. Women have understood something that many men ignore. Love is emotion, but it is also economics. It always has been. For centuries, marriage was an economic arrangement, and only recently has it become a romantic fantasy. Marriage for love is a modern invention, little more than a century old. Perhaps our ancestors, who treated marriage as a business, were more realistic. They knew that feelings evaporate, but contracts remain. Women are not mercenary for considering resources. They are rational. They know that passion does not pay rent, that enchantment does not finance school, that desire does not cover medical emergencies. This calculation is survival. Meanwhile, men lose themselves in idealization and become the fragile side of the negotiation. Modern marriage is an economic contract disguised as a sacred ritual. When someone signs believing that it is only about love, they become a naive character in a play that almost always ends in financial tragedy. Then comes the prenuptial agreement, a term that many treat as heresy. It sounds like the end of magic, but it is maturity. No one stops wearing a seatbelt because they trust that they will never crash their car. No one refuses life insurance because they believe they will never die. The prenuptial agreement is just protection against a risk that statistically exceeds 70%. Marriage has three dimensions: spiritual, social, and legal. The spiritual involves faith, the social involves celebrations, and the legal is a binding contract with the state, and that is where the pitfalls lie. Most people don't even know what they are signing. The groom, in a rented suit and distracted by the honeymoon, hands over to the government the right to decide on assets, future income, and even child custody. Few realize that this contract is not fixed. Laws change. What was valid in 2010 may be different in 2024. Accepting marriage without an agreement is like agreeing to play a game whose rules can be rewritten without warning. The prenuptial agreement then emerges as an act of autonomy. It is not coldness, it is maturity. It fairly defines that what is mine remains mine, what is yours remains yours, and what is built together will belong to both. Transparency, balance. Still, many shy away from this conversation as if it were a death sentence. It is easier to sign a blank check to the state than to face the possibility that even love may have an expiration date. For many, thinking about a prenuptial agreement still seems like an invitation to failure. But this is emotional reasoning, not logical. You take out life insurance without planning to die. You wear a seatbelt without wishing for an accident. You save money without expecting to lose your job. A prenuptial agreement is just another form of protection, only against something that fails in 3 out of 4 cases. What generates resistance is the comfort of fantasy, the illusion that your story is special, that statistics apply to others, never to you. It is the same irrational optimism that leads people to believe they will win the lottery or that they drive better than average. Everyone thinks they are the exception, but mathematics does not bow to romanticism. In practice, the pact forces conversations that couples avoid until it's too late. How will we deal with money? What happens if one of us stops working? How will we handle inheritances, partnerships, businesses? What if the love ends? These questions seem negative, but they are just adult questions. The best marriages are born of radical honesty about expectations and limits. It is the ability to talk about what fairy tales don't teach us. Science also confirms the urgency of this realistic view. Research shows that the chemical state of passion lasts from 18 months to 4 years. After that, what remains is partnership, affinity, and the agreement built. Those who depend only on the initial euphoria discover what millions have already learned. Love is not enough. Surprisingly, the pact does not kill romance, it can strengthen it. For real love is not a prison, it is a conscious choice. When the contract protects both parties, when leaving is possible without destruction, staying takes on a new value. You stay because you want to, not because you fear. This is more intense than any fairy tale. A good pact preserves dignity. It affirms, if it ends, we will walk away intact. It communicates care even for ourselves. It puts both parties on equal footing, entering and, if necessary, leaving as partners, not enemies. This is not a cold gesture. It is proof of maturity and respect. The problem is that most still prefer the charade. They prefer the spectacle of marriage to the solidity of the union. The party overshadows real life. The celebration replaces the preparation. They sign a contract they haven't even read, handing over their future to judges, lawyers, and bureaucrats who don't know them, don't care, and often profit from their ruin. No one talks about the men who remain in dead marriages because leaving would be financial suicide. Men who smile in family photos while inside, they are wasting away. They are not included in divorce statistics, but they are emotional corpses, living only for the countdown until their children grow up and escape becomes possible. These men do not appear in the official figures, but their scars are deep. They are everywhere, though few notice them. He is the guy who stays late at the office, not because he loves his job, but because going home feels like entering a prison cell. He is the man who drinks every night, not because he is an alcoholic, but because he needs to numb his routine. He is the husband who swallows antidepressants, not because of a clinical diagnosis, but because domestic imprisonment corrodes him from within. They believed in the dream of partnership and woke up in servitude. They imagined love. They found obligation. They desired intimacy. They received rejection. And they don't leave because they know that leaving means losing almost everything: children, home, assets, years of effort. So they stay, postponing the final death while they die in installments. They count the days until their children grow up, and only then do they plan their escape. Society ironically applauds them. They are called committed, examples of honor and resilience. But they do not see the price: abandoned dreams, wasted youth, crushed identity. These men are not partners, they are prisoners. When they finally do the math, the calculation is brutal. Take your assets, divide them by 2. Add lawyers' fees, alimony, court costs. Add the hours of therapy, the drop in productivity, the pain of seeing your children only on alternate weekends. It's devastating. And then comes the inevitable question: what is the current benefit of marriage for men? What once made sense no longer holds water. In the past, the institution guaranteed social status, a stable career, legitimate children, domestic support, and a regular sex life. Today, almost all of that has been dismantled. Society accepts singles without prejudice. Professional discrimination is illegal. Sex for many is more accessible outside of marriage than within it. And what about domestic support? Most modern unions are double shift, with both partners too exhausted to support each other. All that remains is the promise of love and partnership. But love does not require a contract, and commitment does not require a signature before the state. All that marriage offers in the end is the possibility of losing half of what you have built and still seeing your own children turned into a bargaining chip in court. The argument that single men are immature or bitter is no longer convincing. Many have never married, are successful, happy, and prosperous. They are not cynical. They are rational. They read the contract and decided not to sign. This is not trauma. It is financial literacy. The comfortable lie repeats that marriage is love, and that love conquers all. The uncomfortable truth is that marriage is a legal contract with severe penalties, and that failure is not an exception, but a probability. The comfortable lie says that yours will be different. The truth shows that everyone who got divorced believed that. The comfortable lie claims that planning for the end is inviting failure. Reality responds that not planning is preparing for ruin. Men do not flee from marriage because they have lost the ability to love. On the contrary, they flee because they realize that loving does not require risking half of what they have achieved. It is not fear of commitment. It is awareness of risk. It is not Peter Pan syndrome. It is the maturity of those who have learned to read contracts before signing. And when they read them, they realize that the game is stacked against them. The rhetoric of shame has also lost its power. Calling them immature no longer works when these boys are building businesses and accumulating wealth, while many married people are drowning in alimony debts and endless lawsuits. Saying that they are missing out on something doesn't stick when they see friends trapped in unhappy marriages. The threat of a lonely old age loses its impact when they see divorcees who are just as lonely, only poorer. The new mindset does not avoid relationships, it just avoids legal ties. Men continue to date, love, and live together, but they do not sign papers that hand over their financial freedom to a system that profits from failure. Many keep separate finances, preserve individual spaces, and protect their future without giving up on building partnerships. And to society's amazement, they are thriving. They create emotional bonds, have children in alternative arrangements, and enjoy freedom and stability at the same time. The collapse of social pressure has allowed this choice. Marriage is no longer the mandatory badge of adulthood. Marriage rates are plummeting. The age of first marriage is skyrocketing, and a growing number of men are deciding never to marry. The question is not why they are broken, but why the institution is. After all, for the man who has built something, getting married is like playing Russian roulette with half of his assets. Even for those who still believe, lucidity requires a minimum step, talking about a prenuptial agreement, not the superficial version, where the subject is raised and then swallowed up after dramatic tears, but the real, detailed, firm conversation, the dialogue in which risks are put on the table and measures are outlined. Because no matter how much two people love each other today, tomorrow may be different. And if they can't talk about it, they're not ready for marriage. They're only ready for parties, photos, and memories that quickly fade away. Some couples really beat the statistics. They are the ones who talk about money without fighting, who plan for contingencies without feeling like they are betraying the relationship, who protect each other even from their own downfall. They are the ones who choose to stay together every day, not because they have to, but because they want to. And that choice is only authentic when there is real freedom to leave. Marriage can be one of the greatest constructions of life, but it can also be the most devastating emotional and financial ruin. Ignoring this second possibility does not make it disappear. It only increases the impact when it arrives. Men are not abandoning love. They are moving away from a contract that makes no sense. They do not reject women. They reject a legal structure that turns affection into disproportionate risk. The truth is that there is an entire industry that thrives on the breakdown of unions. Lawyers profit from every hearing, therapists from every trauma, real estate agents from every home forced into sale. The bloodier the process, the more money circulates. The family court is not failing. It works exactly as it was designed to extract, divide, prolong. Judges are not guardians of love. They are administrators of a system that feeds on collapse. That is why men have come to see marriage for what it really is. A contract in which the rules change in the middle of the game, always weighing more heavily on those who produce more. And no amount of naivety can resist this. What was once seen as an unquestionable commitment is now calculated as an unreasonable risk. The balance no longer tips toward reward, but toward cost. Faced with this new awareness, many realize that this is not a crisis, but an evolution, an awakening. The understanding that a man's value does not lie in signing a contract, but in preserving his freedom and his work. Marriage is not dying because men are afraid, but because the institution demands too much and delivers too little. Until this balance changes, they will continue to walk out of the church with the same serenity with which others in the past walked in. If this reflection has awakened something in you, leave your support of any amount, and write in the comments a word that symbolizes your decision to face life with clarity. It can be resistance, consciousness, or freedom. Like the video and subscribe to the channel to continue receiving truths that few dare to say.